Ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Chamber of the Wraith. My name is Brian, and tonight we are redoing Kung Lao. I recorded an entire episode of the White Lotus Dojo, and guess who didn't manage to turn on his damn mic? So, I'm basically redoing the whole damn thing. The only good news is that because I basically already redid it, I basically got a whole practice run, which means I should be able to trim this down a little bit. It was about 40 minutes, the original take. So, hopefully, we should be good to go. And yes, we are beating up on Shiva because I just realized that outside of the guest characters, Liu Kang and the guest characters in Liu Kang, I didn't touch any of the DLC characters except for Shang Tsung and Fujin, so we should probably deal with that in short order here. So, let's do it. And of course, we're doing this in the usual fashion. We set up the first tournament variation, we have the frame data on both of them, we have easy crushing blows on, and we will set auto block shenanigans on individuals just to be safe. And I think we're basically set now. I just have to do auto and random. Yeah, we're good. Okay, so, and as always, we're going to start with attacks that do not go into anything else. Now, Kung Lao is interesting in that he actually has interesting properties off of a couple of his normals because they use his hat. But because they are normal attacks, you don't want to be deprived of them just because you happen to lose your hat. So he actually has unarmed variants of 2 attacks. And that's only happening in normals, not in combo attacks or special moves. First, we have Lopong, a 7-frame down 1, really quick, allows you to go into shenanigans. This is -4 on block, but a 7-frame down 1 is never a bad thing. Then we have Rising Rim. That's his uppercut. It's 11 frames, pretty good range, launches the opponent for damage. It's -7 on block, but on flawless block, come on, there we go. He's -17. Now what's interesting is that if Kung Lao loses his hat, he has a second uppercut. And this uppercut is 9 frames. It's a 9-frame down 2, and it's really good. There's no real way for me to kind of drop the hat outside of this. So, and in case you're curious, yes, in theory, you can down 2 with just the fist, or just a down 2 crushing blow. So that is really good to keep in mind. So he has a good uppercut with decent range, and a slightly faster uppercut if he happens to lose his hat. Sidekick is down 7, and one of the best down 3s in the game because of how low he goes. He kind of low profiles and is difficult to hit, and a 7-frame load that's -5 I'm never going to say no to. Then we have Spin Kick. This knocks the opponent back and does 70 damage. On block, it's neutral, even on flawless block. But because Kung Lao is in the air when he does this, trades will knock him down, so be wary of that. Then we have Sweeping Razor, which is probably the best sweep in the game in terms of its unique properties. It hits low, as you would expect, and has pretty good range. But this can also hit mid and can actually anti-air. So if I time this right, I can actually anti-air with this. I know I can. Hold on. There it is. I anti-aired with a sweep, which is ridiculous. And yes, the hat can hit mid as well, but what makes it really good is that on hit, I have to turn it back, that's what's going on. Or on block, the second hit doesn't come out, and Kung Lao is actually minus 24. But on normal block, he's minus 13, so he's twice as safe, and he hits twice for chip damage. Meaning that if your opponent avoided chip earlier, this is a guaranteed kill if you go for it. Which no other sweep can really do. And of course, if you have a normal sweep, which is actually minus 3. His unhatted sweep is minus 3 and has a similar effect, but it obviously doesn't hit twice. Next, we have Twin Kicks. This is your go-to extender and ender for combos because it does really nice damage. For instance, if we do this combo here, the tricky thing is actually getting it to come out because I'm always a little bit too late on this. But as you can see, I can still get 30% even if I drop it. And of course I can get more damage if I, say, ended an uppercut, for example. And finally, we have Back Kick, which is a really good down 4. It's 11 frames, bust the shins. On block, it's minus 9, so it's punishable. And Twin Kicks is minus 3 on block as well, just so you know. His jumping attacks are Razor Edge, which can hit overhead, but generally is air-to-air, so air-to-air trades. Shaolin Strike, which hits air to surface, and should be your go-to for jumping combos. And Light Kick, which is jump 3 or jump 4, nothing to write home about, but it can be canceled into Dive Kick, which we'll talk about later. Then we have his hop attacks, wake up attacks, and his back throw, because the back throw is the only one that has a crushing blow. And that crushing blow is, as you would probably expect, if an opponent fails a throw tech. And then I need to set up one for block. Like that. And then for Kung Lao, I have to do standing, I have to jump, because this is where things can get silly. But first, let's clear the back throw. If you fail a throw tech against Kung Lao, be ready for a back throw, because that's a crushing blow. Which means if you tech for a back throw, you should be okay every time a Kung Lao manages to get a throw off on you. Even if it's a forward throw at the start and you mess up. Then we have next we have Shaolin Shalub, which I'm not totally sure what that means. I'm going to spell that real quick. S-H-A-L-H-O-U-B. Apparently it's a surname. It is a surname of sorts, which is curious. Apparently the actor who has this as a last name started in a TV show called The Monk, which makes me think that that is the whole point of the reference. Shaolin Shalub, Shaolin Monk. Funny. 11 frame kick. Overhead, nothing to write home about. I'll talk block data in a second. Actually. Minus 12. And I believe it's always minus 12. Whereas the Vicious Slice is slightly faster, has about the same range, and is minus 14. Then we have Wake Up Attacks. Flip Kick. Hits twice for 90 damage every time. It used to do, I think, 113 or something like that. And the reason why that is because they seriously increased the scaling on the second hit. That second hit does 40 damage normally, but after the second hit, it does exactly half. Meaning, in Kung Lao's unique situation, where I'm gonna have to re-record this, hold on. And then, where you can actually combo off of this thing. It's very tricky to do, but I've seen it happen, where you can actually combo off of this. Not quite sure how best to do it though. Oh, I know I can do it. Come on. did this on the first try in the last one, so maybe this is where I lose my marbles. Okay, let's move this to the corner then. Let's move this to the left. Just to make it easier on myself, and then we'll do right. Come on. Ran out of bar. There we go. But did you see how much damage that actually did for you? It did next to nothing. In fact, this hit is supposed to be 50 damage. It's supposed to be 5%, or 3%, sorry. After this, you lose 3/4 of the damage. It gets ridiculous to the point that, let me just make sure, okay. To the point that you shouldn't go for it. You should never go for this, because if you do, you're gonna lose damage. And the person who did it did a fatal blow, not knowing how harshly that was going to scale, and the fatal blow ended up doing 25%. And if you're doing less damage in a fatal blow combo than the base fatal blow, something went terribly wrong. And finally, we have Rising Hat, which is an extending is a combo extender. Well, a combo starter. Not the best in terms of meter extension, but because of how long combos can be when you do that, you can regain a lot of your defensive meter fairly quickly. On block, however, this is -8, -13 on flawless block, and Rising Hat is -17. Also, Rising Hat does not anti-air very well, which is very odd indeed. But look, I even delayed it, and it just straight up didn't want to anti-air. That's very odd. Now, let's very quickly tag combo strings that are full strings, so not double yang. Broken Faith, Flowing Water, Plum Flower, and Iron Broom. So we're going to start with Order of Light. This string side switches, which is unique for a string to do this, and it is special cancelable. So if you do this, you can use it to extend combos and get some pretty decent damage out of it as a result. Fatal Blow, which is hilarious to me because that's the name of a special move, knocks down, ends in a low, and does decent damage, but cannot be special canceled on the third hit. Also, none of these attacks come out on block. You can see I'm trying. It's not working. I have to basically just settle for 1-2. And 1-2 is -5 on block. So keep that in mind. Then we have Monk Dunk, which is what I ended the Invincible Wake Up combo with earlier. This starts off with a 10-frame mid and knocks down. But because this is a 10-frame mid, you punish, get your combos. However, you should use this to knock down because you're plus 47, allowing you to get in and do decent damage. And if the opponent does block this thing, it's -7 with no flawless block gap whatsoever. Then there's Deadly Path, which is all mid except for the end, which is a high, so you can duck that no problem. And it does decent damage. And you can cancel into it. And you can special cancel into it if you really want to. But here's the kicker. Deadly Path is -19 on flawless on block, and you extend it to be -6. But if I set Shiva to flawless block, there are 3 flawless block gaps in that string, which is insane. And in fact, I'm going to show you one other big issue because this thing is a high at the end. Nope. And then I get a full combo punish, which hurts like hell. So want to see that again? I get a full combo punish, and with Shiva, I've set up damage over time, and I can start trying to stomp on you. Do not use this string unless you are extremely confident that your opponent cannot flawless block or doesn't know that this is a high. Otherwise, stay away from Deadly Path if you can. Then you have Kumtang and Broken Faith. These are both strings that come off of 2-1, which has a pretty cool boomerang hat effect. Although, this entire sequence is a high. So you're left vulnerable for about a second if your opponent decides to just neutral duck. And of course get an uppercut crushing blow out of it. But if you do land Kumtang, usually off of a jump in or something, you can easily net some really good damage. So for instance, land this. Bam. 35%, no problem. That was for 1 bar because of this string, which can end on its own for 21% damage. Bam. Or you can cancel into it early if the opponent is suspecting that they're just going to be able to try and flawless block or something. But Broken Faith is not a string you see too often because Kumtang has all of the benefits. First off, on block, no flawless block gap whatsoever, and after all the punches, Kung Lao is actually +1. And then he can cash that in for a knockdown if the opponent thinks that they can try and punish you for that or something. Bam, and knock him back full screen. Plus the chip damage. Look at all the chip damage that you get. You ate almost 6% damage from just chip. Which, remember, chip damage is heavily reduced, so... And even with a flawless block in place, the opponent still ate almost 3% chip. And then you also have to consider that there's a flawless block gap in Broken Faith. Which, yes, this leaves Kung Lao at -2, but the benefits of going for Kung Tang are way better. Especially if you stop after the punches to leave yourself at +1, giving yourself effectively a 9-frame throw. Then we have Flowing Water, which is the only string Kung Lao has that has a crushing blow. You'll notice that Kung Lao is one of those characters that doesn't get too many crushing blows, but they're all fairly easy to get to. Flowing Water, if it's a counter or a punish, you get... what else? A combo, a starter and extender. Granted, the trouble is that I'm not that good with Kung Lao, so it's gonna look harder than it actually is. Ignore that was a crushing blow. I was kind of matching down to. But you can see where that gets really handy, especially off of a 15-frame mid. However, Flowing Water is -13 on block. So an opponent that sees this coming and happens to block this thing, you're probably going to get walloped for that. Then you have Plum Flower, which is high-low, ends in a sweep animation, and leaves Kung Lao at +31. Meaning that you could potentially try and stay on opponents for Oki. But the thing is that I don't even know if you can combo into this thing because of the fact it ends in the sweep, but we'll try. Yeah, no, you wouldn't be able to. But this knocks down, it's nothing to write home about, it's -4, but the thing is, if you do that, if you go for this string, there's a high right at the start that is 12 frames. So there's a good chance you're going to get walloped for it. Then there's Iron Broom to close things out, which sweeps opponents and leaves Kung Lao +5 and does decent damage. And the cool thing is, it's low, mid, mid, low, and you can actually special cancel off of this. At any point, you can easily get combos. even if I whiffed the uppercut. You get the idea. Now let's talk universal specials, and they're pretty simple. Nothing to write home about. This variation was very nice and allowed all of these to kick in. However, I am going to have to leave an exclusion off of the list, which is Teleports Amplify. We'll talk about Teleports Amplify in a second. But first, we need to start with Spin. Launches opponents meterlessly. Not too many characters have that in this game, which is really, really nice. If you Amplify, hits a few times and can extend combos. You are always able to do meterless spin into metered spin, but you can never do meterless spin into spin in order to do combos. So what you always do is you do some buttons, meterless spin, and then go for whatever conversion you want to get damage. That is the Kung Lao way, especially if you're really feeling cheeky. And want to spend some extra bar. Okay, that was illegal. I held the button down for too long by mistake, but you can see the idea. Bam! 371. And yes, that could crushing blow if the opponent broke away from this for some reason, but as you can see, most of the time, the smart thing to do is actually to just get away on that. Especially since you can't really do anything off of that. So, just be mindful of that fact. Then we have Hat Toss. Simple projectile, does 70 damage. Hat comes back after a little while, but again, nothing to write home about otherwise. Shaolin Drop is Kung Lao's armor break. Now, if you remember the Jackie video, I said that her armor break was really bad because it's really hard to land because it's from the air. Kung Lao has no such problem with this because if the opponent were to break away from, say, an uppercut, because of the fact that dive kick starts up in 4 frames, you can easily get this done. Yes, you'll get less damage from it, but that's because you're doing it wrong. First off, you should always jump kick into dive kick. That way you do more damage and hit multiple times on breakaway. And that way you can also confirm into breakaway too. If the opponent tries to delay it, and they break away on the jump kick, you can hit them with the dive kick. Then you have its crushing blow, which requires you to either land this to land dive kick twice in a row, which can be a little bit difficult to do because you have to basically land this, wait, hold on, jump in, go for it, or be a lunatic and just go for dive kick twice, which you shouldn't do because dive kick is minus 29 on flawless block. But again, you have to keep in mind, we can do more. 500 damage, no sweat. And I haven't even gotten to the best part yet. You see that? If off of an instant air dive kick, I can actually catch the opponent off of a spin. It's very tricky and it requires an instant air. But if your instant airs are on point, then you can absolutely go for instant air dive kick to try and catch her and then do a crushing blow. And even then, most opponents are not fast enough to do it instantly. If you do this, see, it was 490 because the opponent delayed the breakaway because they saw an opportunity to try and get away, and then Kung Lao was like, nope, you're gonna eat this. The only problem is that not the entire attack or breaks armor. Only the first hit does. So you can find yourself in a slightly disadvantageous situation if you amplify and the opponent reads that. So there's a bit of risk to this reward. But still, it's a very good armor break. Then we have Teleport, which can both be done like this, and then you can amplify to delay it and then come out. Takes about 2.5 seconds. Then you have your attacks, which come in each direction. One is a hat swipe. Good for starting combos. It's a high, but as you can see, if you do it at the right time, it'll even miss Shiva, though. Come on. I know this works. I had it work once before. Come on. Maybe. Come on, work for me, would you please? Oh, I see what it is. There it is. Have to delay it a little bit, but there you go. Sorry it took so long. I'm very stubborn. If I know something works, I need to make it work. Standing 2 off of teleport is an overhead. Now, you might think, well, why would I ever go for this? It's just a knockdown. Well, hat swipe is a high. Now, yes, on block, hat swipe is +4, and that is including flawless block. But it's a high. Need I remind you? So if you expect the opponent is going to do that, go for an overhead, especially since Liu Kang, wrong monk. Although this is -7, so it is technically punishable. But if you go for Shaolin Slam, which is also a high, it does have a benefit. It's unblockable because it's a true throw. You grab and you slam. And if you do Wu-Tang right after Shaolin Slam, guess what? Crushing blow. Now, a lot of people know about this one, but the trick is to see if your opponent is going to neutral duck, because Wu-Tang is a mid. It's not an overhead, it's a straight up mid. And when you land this thing, of course it has a crushing blow, but it's also, you can also block it at -4, even if you duck block. However, if the opponent is expecting another Shaolin Slam or high attack or combo starter, and then you go for Wu-Tang and it lands, crushing blow. That's all you need to know. Now we can talk about this variation's unique moves, which all fit conveniently here. Orbiting Hat, which costs a bar of meter, causes the hat to kind of move around the opponent. And if you do the input again, the range of this hat becomes stupid wide, like start of the match. But the caveat is that now I'm completely out of meter. I can also amplify by pressing the button to trade range for 2 hats. The catch being that I don't get the hat for certain shenanigans. I don't have the meter to do amplify spin afterwards. This is incredibly expensive, but it can lead to some nasty situations for the opponent. But most people don't pick Lotus Fist Kung Lao in Combat League. They pick hat tricks because it has all kinds of crazy shenanigans to talk about. So let's take a look at them. Guided Hat, Z Hat, and Air Teleport. I don't need to tag all of the teleport options because you can do them on the ground. So, Guided Hat. Nothing to write home about. It's still a normal projectile, but now you can aim it. You can aim it low to turn it into a mid. You can never turn it into a true low, though, which I think after a certain point you should be able to. And you can throw it upwards. This is good if you want to try and catch jumping opponents, or opponents trying to jump back. Then you have Z Hat, which is fairly slow. But as you can see, it hits mid-mid-low and knocks the opponent down. If you amplify this, you can get combos going off of Z-Hat. Not the best starter in the world, but it's something. Or wait, I forgot. If I do this... Oh, I won't be able to reach it. I wouldn't be able to reach her that way. But you can also be sneaky and do this. And cancel it. This costs 1 bar defensive meter. But because the cancel is so fast, there you go. You can now do throws. You can enforce pressure. You can do stuff like this. And all of that tricky stuff. This is why people pick hat tricks. Because Z-Hat is really good, and you can't complain about ever having a mid projectile. Especially one that will always hit crouching opponents. What's more, this is just the same hat otherwise. So you do more stuff with the same basic kit. It's better. And of course, air teleport, which is really good if you're trying to get in on opponents that are zoning and they try for an air projectile. Just like the ground throw, these attacks can come out, but you need to be mindful that air teleport is only a little bit faster. It's 11 frames instead of 16. Also, yes, you can delay it if you really wanted to. Now, real quick, before we continue, I need to point out that Z-Hat is -5. But on Amplify, +22. That hurts a lot, especially when you consider all the chip damage that it does, and if you have a crushing blow throw. Look at that! Shiva's already 40% dead. Now we need to go to the final variation, Order of Light. Vortex, and then we'll just tag this because it's going to be a nightmare otherwise. First up, we need to talk about Vortex. Basically, a really crappy version of the spin. It used to be worse, too. That's the crazy thing. This used to have almost a full second of startup. And I believe it used to almost never hit. So, you can combo into this, but you're not going to get crazy extended combos. Like you might expect. You can amplify this, and the longer you spin, the bigger this projectile becomes and the further you go. And boom, full screen projectile that launches. So I can do stuff like this. Charge up, teleport. If they're scared of the projectile, I can go for an overhead or a throw or what have you. Not great though. Maybe you can catch them in a dive kick, who knows. Still, not the best spin. Then there's Spiritual Guidance, which is the real reason why you play this variation. It's not even particularly that great, but it's still worth keeping an eye on. And before I forget, Vortex on block is -21 just like normal spin. And Amplify is -20 at point blank range. But of course, the further away you are, the more plus you are. Starting with Spiritual Guidance, we can end it. It's slightly slower than if you ended Z-Hat with the cancel, but because the startup is only 15 frames into this stance, you're generally fine. Then you have Ground Burst, which I believe used to be able to track, but now has different ranges. Close, mid, far, and very far. It's -18 on block regardless of where you are, but this can be a really good way to stagger opponents because guess what? This is basically a low projectile. Then you have Upward Soul Burst, which can be used to extend combos in lieu of a normal spin, which Kung Lao doesn't have in this variation. He just has Vortex. And unfortunately that last hit missed, but as you can see, 30% no bar. And look at that, 30% no bar, no problem. And finally we have Soul Burst, which does have a Crushing Blow, but in order to get this thing to Crushing Blow, that last bubble has to be the only bubble that connects. And it's kind of tricky to get combos off of. So I'm just going to do that just for ease, but you smart Kung Lao players will definitely get an idea for what you can do off of this particular Crushing Blow. Now, finally, actually before I forget, fun fact, that Crushing Blow used to be that you had to get everything else. So you had to get an Upward Soul Burst, you had to get a low Soul Burst, and you had to get a straight Soul Burst in order to get that Crushing Blow. And it just knocked down for big damage. Finally, we get to talk about his Fatal Blow. Beaten and Broken. This is a pretty dangerous Fatal Blow because it hits twice. It's minus 28 on block, but if you land this thing, of course, you hit twice, you do really good damage, and you can use the thing to end combos like nobody's business. So, don't forget to be awesome, my friends. I'll see you guys on the other side, and Kung Lao players, hats off to you. This is a combo just for you.